What's up, everybody? Welcome to Free Lady. We're two little weirdos over here, like living in our weirdness, and I love it. We were laughing before this, so I'm like, why not start with this? But again, welcome to Free Lady. I'm your host, Brittney McWethy. Again, this channel is all about sharing stories to help you inspire you to be a better person, to love yourself, whatever that is. It's also for you to come here and find your community of who you might think will be in your corner to help you become the person that you want to be. Again, I'm not a licensed therapist. I am just here.
I thought that's what we were on this couch for.
Therapy. You need to be laying down. Hey. This is super fun, you guys. So Amber is obviously sitting here next to me, so she will be on the episode today, and we're just going to be talking about life. Amber has a shit ton of stories to talk about, and we're just going to navigate through those, and whatever comes out for you to hear is what you need to hear. It's how I do all of my episodes. But of course, we are going to start off with three things that this is really hot.
I knew that wasn't going to work for you.
Well, you know, it's like, it's like faux leather. You know what I mean?
You're just going to have to take it off.
This whole episode is about bloopers with Amber, you know, whatever. But that's what's fun, right? So Bryce and I were just talking about this, how like laughter is such an amazing medicine, right? And he actually says, he read this thing about where in our minds like laughter goes. So it goes into our short-term memory and our long-term memory. And that's why we remember laughter so much. So I think it's important to share laughter on episodes and laugh with each other and all these things. But of course, I always start with three things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to have an interview in person. Like, this is so awesome. This was Amber's idea. Like, why don't we do this in person? We were going to do it over Zoom. And I just think there's more magic when you are in person. So of course, you guys know that Daniel and I have done episodes in person. Now I have Amber, I have Bryce. Like, it's just been really, really fun. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful that I got to attend the Lion's Den Fly-In yesterday, where we just expand our minds under Sean and Saxony's like amazing ways, how they get questions and the way they make you think about your life and to become a better person. And of course, I'm also thankful I get to be doing this journey here with Daniel.
There's a guy in here? Oh no.
Oh, I know, right? He has like come with me all day. This is the second podcast I've recorded today, and he's been so kind to take photos. And
he's a really good cameraman right now.
I know, right? We have an audience of one. It's like really and Remy. Yeah, and Remy. So Amber,
Remy's completely disinterested.
I know, she's like,
whatever.
So Amber, tell the audience who you are and what do you do?
Didn't we talk about loaded questions?
Who am I? Loaded potato. You gotta get through the sour cream, the salt, the cheese, the potato,
and then we
skin,
bake it.
And then we bake it.
Just kidding, we're not getting baked. So hi, my name is Amber, and I'm an alcoholic. Just kidding. But I am sober. We did discuss that before. I have been to AA, so that's appropriate. Oh gosh, wow, this is a loaded question. So
I know, I'm sorry.
I am we're kind of kindred spirits in that, like, you know, I'm a free spirit too. I've gotten to this point in my life where I've realized, though, for me, that a lot of my free spiritedness was running from a lot of things. So where I'm kind of at, like in my head, I'll just use this current version of like something that's been on my mind of who I am currently, is coming into my own, becoming an adult. Like I really just very recently feel like I'm becoming an adult. And this is something that I've determined. This is not scientifically backed. This is just my own experience backed, that if you don't have kids, you're not forced to grow up. And so you just kind of stay a kid. And so I feel like I've just been this child navigating the adult life for the last 38 years. And just last year, really feel like I kind of became an adult, which with that came confidence in myself, my own decision making adult choices and adult decisions, and not feeling like I need to rely on other people, whether it be not rely on people like monetarily, things like that. I've
Right.
always been fairly independent,
Right.
but this is actually kind of weird. I'm like, am I talking to you here? Am I talking to you here?
Whatever. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, we are technically talking to
we-
you guys.
yeah.
So
we
but
are
if
talking
we
to you.
wanna,
Yes.
like look at each other and
Admire each other.
yeah.
But now I just lost my train of thought. Why did I do that to myself? Yeah. There's this. Did you see that squirrel?
I did. I see him everywhere. I see him everywhere.
Coming into my own. Let's rewind. Coming into my own, gaining confidence, depending on people. I
Yeah.
didn't depend on people monetarily. I've always been fairly independent, because I was kind of on my own from a young age, where I feel like a lot of us are, we become adults when we're 18, we move out and do our thing, but a lot of us have parents that we can kind of fall back on if things get hard. But I didn't have that, having lost my mom when I was 18 and not having a relationship with my father. So, and then having my brother live with me. So I was kind of thrown into becoming an adult from a financial standpoint and having to jump into responsibilities because I had to. Right. But the emotional piece is what I was lacking. I really relied on other people emotionally. So there's a lot of codependency that came from my childhood and then into my adult life that I'm just finally breaking. So current, today version of me, what I'm really working on with myself, which is like kind of how I identify with right now, is this woman that's a first generation entrepreneur, trying to cut her teeth and being an entrepreneur, which is a massive roller coaster. Nobody really warns you of that. Like it's fun to work for yourself. They said it's a roller coaster. Yeah,
it is. It's rewarding.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. So I have to remind myself daily what the rewards are because it can be very hard. So figuring out on my own, and thankfully, speaking of things that Brittney's grateful for and having this network of people, is I've been able to surround myself with other entrepreneurs and very hardworking people that are on the same path. By also removing myself from old systems and patterns and people that I was surrounding myself with that were not helping me grow in that way. So having removed myself a few years ago from those systems and patterns and groups of people, I was able to kind of break off and become myself, and really step into my own confidence, start my own business. And essentially what I had said actually in the den, my intro video into the den, January of 2020, was in my 5-year plan that I wanted to buy a van, live on the road, finish college, start a business, doing marketing for companies, or people. And just by being in a coaching group and investing in myself for the first time in my life, which was very scary. I literally signed up for this thing that I was like, what is this even? And marked my calendar for the 30-day mark of when I would have to cancel before I was charged again, because I figured that I wouldn't stay in it. Right. And so it, that was the first time I had invested in myself. And that was what got the ball rolling. I ended up accomplishing all of those 5-year plans things in that first year and just going up from there. So now, fast forward a few years, having moved 1, 2, 3 states since then, having lost a job and then started a business, took on another job for 10 months that was extremely challenging. Then coming to where I am now is, there's so much challenge within that. Like even some of it that I'm just like kind of, it's, when you talk and you just realize things as you're talking, it's like, I put myself through a lot of challenges over the last few years that have gotten me where I am in good and bad ways, right? Not bad ways, like I'm in a bad place, but like in my head, these insecurities that I still feel of, daily, that I have these thoughts of, you're not cut out for this, Amber. Why are you doing this? You're not an entrepreneur. Go get a job. Like, what are you thinking? Like, just go do it. So there's the double-edged sword of surrounding yourself with people you want to be like, and people that are more successful and smarter than you. You should do. But then sometimes it can really put a mirror on you and make you feel some kind of way, right? Or me, anyway. I don't know.
No, I get it. I feel the same, because it's like, who am I to do this podcast? Who am I to like share stories? But it's like, who am I not to do this? I talk about this like all the time. It's like, who are you not to like speak your truth, tell your story. I'm telling my story. Other people are telling your stories because we don't want you to feel alone because you're not.
Mhm.
But guess what? You get to put the people around you that are going to inspire you, but also be like, yes, Brittany, like keep going, keep doing what you're doing, because along this path, you are going to find the people that you thought were the closest to you are like, Brittany, I don't think what you're doing is right. But you know what? It is okay. It is okay. Everyone can have their opinion. I don't care. What I do care about is like keep spreading unconditional love to everybody,
Yep.
and like just like you were saying, I mean, when you get into this level of being like an influencer, like you're gonna get the bad, the good, the in between, the everything.
Mhm.
And it's a lot, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's 100% worth it. And it's that influencer word is so funny because to people that are in the marketing space and the coaching space,
Mhm.
think influencer is like Kim Kardashian or, all these people with hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, but
Right.
we're all influencers. Whether you've
We
got,
are.
that's not
Mhm.
just a social media term. Yes, it's become a social media
Yeah.
term and there's influencers and influencer marketing and blah, blah, blah. There's
Right.
also micro influencers as a term now in the marketing space.
Oh.
But even just in general, so I didn't get into what I do. I do digital marketing, social media
Mhm.
management, graphic design, fractional COO work. So I really do a lot of different things,
Which is awesome.
It's all over the board.
I mean,
It's hard
hired
to
her.
like package up for my business. That's what's made my business a little bit challenging, but I love it because I can do all kinds of different things. But with the influencers, the thing that I've realized and that gives me some solace and gives me a little bit of confidence, and then I can spill that into other people is that we're all influencers, whether
Mhm.
you're on social media with 100,000 followers or
Right.
500 followers or sitting in a room of 2 other people, you're influencing people in some way, somehow. So
Right.
that can be scary because if you really think about it, it's like everything that you say and do, you're representing something, right? You're representing an identity, you're representing a way of life. If you want to have an impact, you have to think about what kind of impact you're leaving on other people.
Mhm.
But just know that we're all influencers. We're all able to influence and
Yeah.
impact. It's just what do you want your legacy to be? What kind of impact do you want to leave on, and what kind of knowledge do you want to impart on other people?
Right. Right. I mean, you influence like your own kids by just acting as a good person, like sharing everything with them. You
Mhm.
are an influencer around the people that you work with. You're an influencer at a gym, someone might look at you and be like, dang, I want to like look like that,
Yes.
and that's not, an egotistical thing to say. I mean, I do that. I'm like, damn,
Mhm.
I like want her body, I'm going to work hard for that. I'm not going to compare myself, but let's work hard to that. So we're influencing, all kinds of people everywhere and everything that we do. I mean, I remember as a child, like I thought Oprah was a god. Like, I'm like, when I was a child, like struggling through things, I'm like, I am just going to write a letter to Oprah and she's going to change my life.
Yes.
Like, I really, truly believe this, but that's how powerful of an influencer she is,
Yeah.
right? She was, I mean, she's one of the first huge influencers on television, and she still is to this day, So I haven't actually listened to her in a really long time, like a really long time.
I never really watched her.
But I grew up, Oprah was always on the television all the time. You know what I mean? So you had to like grow up kind of fast. Like, you lost your mom. I mean, that had to be super hard losing your mom at that age,
Yeah. It's yeah. That's another thing I've been processing lately is thinking about other people's life experiences, which I feel like just in the spaces I've been putting myself in the last few years, I get to really dive into other people's experiences, especially. So here's what the actual difference is the people I'm surrounding myself with now are very different than the people I used to surround myself with.
Right.
And I'm starting to realize that the kind of life experiences that I had are not actually normal. But the people that I grew up with had very similar things happening to them, because we grew up in the same place. It was a lot of similar toxicities happening.
Right.
in that area and around the, you surround yourself with misery loves company, so you're going to surround yourself with other people that are having the same kind of hardships you are.
Right.
And so now surrounding myself with different people and having different kinds of conversations where the kind of people I surround myself with, we're not sitting around gossiping about people. We're not lamenting about our problems and, crying about exes and doing these kind of things, bless you if you're still in that space in your life, but come out of it, because you don't have, those aren't the things like, for 36 years of my life, like that was just everything I talked about. Like hang out with your friends to lament about your problems and complain, and I spent most of my life complaining about everything.
Yeah.
So now surrounding myself with better quality relationships. I try to always struggle. It's not that the people like are bad or good. It's just better quality relationships and better quality connections.
Right.
That we talk about business, we talk about life, we talk about spirituality, we talk about growth, we talk about the future, where things are going, society, things like that. It's not like the past and lamenting about problems. We're always talking, if we're talking about a problem, it's talking about the solution to the problem, not lamenting in the problem.
Yeah.
So what I'm discovering now in these new connections and new relationships that I have and hearing about other people's life experiences is that apparently I did have kind of a dramatic upbringing. There was a lot of bad things that happened. Which is great because I have a great sense of humor about it now, right?
You should. Happen. When you get over it, you should, and you get to teach others or help others, like just resonate, relate, not feel alone.
Yeah. So that's also to say that you can go through some really dark stuff and come out the other side of it. Just some of the things from my life is dealing with thankfully not really physical abuse at home or sexual abuse. Thankfully there was a lot of sexual abuse in my family that trauma was passed down to me, but but there was a lot of emotional manipulation, a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of verbal abuse, stepdad getting arrested constantly. When I was old enough to figure out that I could get him arrested, I would constantly call the cops on him. And then I became really aggressive because I became the protector in my family. That's where, my codependency came from.
I totally get that.
Yeah. Is my mom was an alcoholic. My stepdad was super abusive, emotionally and verbally. And so I would try to protect my mom. Then I would try to protect my little brother. And so I just took on the role of protector, and that brought out all of my masculine. And I was in that until about 2021. Sounds weird to say 2021.
I know, right?
2021. That I was fully in my masculine as a protective mechanism, not only for others, but for myself. Because then my mother committed suicide when I was 18 and my brother was 15. My dad then had to come back in the picture because my brother was underage. My brother had to go live with him. That wasn't going well. So my dad said, take your brother. I can't handle him. Wow. I took him in when he was 16. I was 19. Couldn't keep him in school. So he dropped out, had a kid pretty young while he was living with me. And then then just a lot of drinking and partying throughout my 20s because I had no self-worth. I only found, connection with men through sex. So that's where I say a lot of that sexual trauma. So it's even if, and I'm not comparing my own experience to someone that has had actual direct sexual trauma, but there was a lot of sexual trauma in my family. So there was things that my mom did to protect me, assuming that it was probably going to happen to me, also created a lot of fear in me of men and of touch and things like that. And just, if you believe in that kind of stuff, just ancestral trauma stuff that's passed down literally through our DNA.
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
And what's weird is like, so this is, have you ever read, which book was it in? I'm not going to remember. I can't remember things like that, but there was a book that talks about generational trauma and I don't know if normal people think about this, but I didn't really think about it, that when our mothers were in our grandmother's wombs, we were also in the womb because as the baby's formed, the egg is starting to form. We're technically also in our grandmother's bodies too. So there's a lot of connection, particularly with,
oh my God, what book is that? I didn't read it, but someone else was talking about this, and
I'll take you down to my library down there, and we'll figure it out afterwards. I'm really bad at
someone else was just talking about this on social media, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like,
there's some really good books about just how, and not even from like, it's not completely woo woo. It's like actual scientific stuff of how generational trauma happens and how it gets passed down. I started to reconcile over the last couple of years why I used sex as intimacy, because I always associated with like I didn't, why am I, sleeping around and like doing these things, not like
Mhm.
sleeping around with a lot, but like I was freely giving sex to people that I shouldn't have given it to. Right.
Yeah, I understand.
And I was like, well, I don't have sexual trauma, so I'm not doing it. But it really, my behavior was, you would have thought that I did have sexual trauma. So
Right.
I was giving my parts away.
Right.
That sounds really weird. I was giving my parts of me away to
There you
people
go.
that here you go, you can have my parts. That's why I didn't
Yeah.
have any titties. I gave my titties away.
Again, finding humor in our trauma.
In the trauma. Yes, you must have a dark humor to get through life. So giving parts of me away that I shouldn't have given, because I never really even felt like I had those parts. Right.
Yeah.
So coming from a household of, and I had a terrible relationship with my actual dad and my stepfather. So I had a lot of aggression towards men. So going into my adult life, it's like, it was either sex or like sex and no relationship, or it's fighting with men at bars, or like my relationships with men were really, really weird.
Yes.
So then coming through, there was a lot of drinking, a lot of, I started drinking at like 15. And then when my mom killed herself, I was drunk literally from morning until night for 6 months. So I started the drinking, the alcoholic drinking at a pretty young age as a teenager. So then that bleeding into my adult life, I used alcohol and then inevitably Coke when I was 21 to curb anxiety, to not deal with things. If I didn't want to face something, I would just go out and party. I couldn't be alone with myself until I then quit drinking when I was 27 for a couple of years. And that's when I really started facing things head on. So that was when I really started processing. I started learning about codependency and triangulation and all of these like communication and things like that. So that was when I really started to finally, and I basically say I was depressed for 27 years of my life. I didn't realize until more recently how much anxiety I was also dealing with, because also then again, it's like I had these preconceived notions of what anxiety is. It's panic attacks and it's, all this stuff. Well, it's not just that, right? There's a lot of different varying levels of anxiety and just emotional trauma, that I just self-medicated, I just used alcohol. Yeah. I just used alcohol and Coke and pills and all that to numb it. And then even when I wasn't as much, I would still fall into the same behaviors. I could go, months without drinking, but then as soon as I did, it's like all of a sudden I'm blacking out again. I'm like, what's going on? So I just had to quit drinking altogether. So that's to say, it's like, everybody's got a past, everybody's dealing with things. You can come out the other side, and like reassuring. And maybe I do, because you were asking if I share any of that story. It's I don't share a lot of that personal stuff online, because in my head, I'm like, other people have had it so much worse than I have. There's women that actually did have sexual trauma, or I have a friend that when she was little, she saw her parents, it was like a murder suicide situation when she was like 6, and she walked in on it. Like, so I know people that have had really, really, really traumatic experiences that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could not imagine. So then I don't want to share my stuff, because I'm always like, other people have it worse. But then if I was talking to somebody else, I'd be like, that's still your story. We're not comparing traumas, right? So maybe I should share more. Maybe it would help somebody. But yeah, it's just, if I were to help somebody with one thing, it would be that, I never ever thought that there was hope for me even being happy. When people would ask what I wanted to be when I grew up, or what I wanted to do in my future, even into my 20s, I would say, I just want to be happy. Literally, that's all I wanted, because I was never happy growing up.
I totally get that. Like even when the first interview I had with Zach, like he grew up with like parents who were drug addicts. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my God, just like my story sounds so like little compared to his, but it's really, you're not comparing your traumas, right? Like, there's a lot of things that are way worse, but at the same time, we're here to share them. And, like everyone can relate to everybody's story in some shape or form. And I look at it as like, when we have these traumatic things happen in our life, we all feel the same. Like it all feels traumatic. So like we do feel depressed. We do feel like we have to numb ourselves with these things, or alcohol or drugs, or just like being so like not confident. those are the side effects of trauma.
Mhm.
So even though our stories are different, we all feel the same. And that's kind of where I stepped into like doing this podcast, because of we all feel the same in a different way, because I mean, I totally get that, like I never realized how masculine I was just until like this past year or so. And then I really understood what that meant when I was at the women's event that Saxony hosted. I was like, oh my God, that's why I've been attracting like these men. Cause I'm always like, I'm a good person. Like I know I can be, a queen to my king, and, whatever you want to call it, you guys can call it whatever you want, but I know I would be able to support my man and his masculinity. And I never ever looked at it that way, because I mean, when I was younger too, like I just had random sex with people and I felt so shitty about myself, but it was because I'm always trying to grasp onto these things that I thought would make me feel better. I was a binge drinker too in my 20s. Like I felt so uncomfortable, like when I didn't have a drink in my hand. It was so bizarre. I remember I'm like, it's me holding something. And so when you're holding something, you got to drink it. And I would black out like all the time in my 20s because I was like so depressed.
Showing up at a party or a bar, it's like, don't talk to me until I have a drink in my hand. Because just having that first sip just starts to chill me out, right? Like, or having that first bump of Coke, it's like, I just needed, just like, don't, because I would have so much social anxiety going into a situation. Now, looking back from a spiritual perspective, the way I see that is like, if I were to ever feel anxious about going into a situation like that, it's probably my body telling me it's a place I shouldn't be. Right. So there's so many aspects of like, of how we can learn from these experiences. And had I not had those experiences, I may not be able to make that connection. Like someone could probably tell me like, hey, your body might do this weird thing and you'll feel like maybe some butterflies and like maybe, you feel gassy or something. It's like, that's anxiety. And that's probably your body. Dude, I kept Gas X in my car because I would get so much like social, like gassy anxiety going and showing up at bars and stuff.
Anxiety
it
for
is.
sure.
And then it disappears as soon as you walk in somewhere, but it's like leading up to it. It's like, oh my God, am I gonna be farting the whole time? Like what's happening? Am I going to have to poop there? Do they have toilet paper? What is
I'm so like that when I go into a massage.
Yeah. Oh, really? I'm like, oh no, please don't fart. And I'm like, let me go poop before I get my massage. I mean, we're free falling, okay? We're free falling.
Again,
squirrel.
Again, if you can't find
it's dog, it's not a squirrel, okay?
Exactly. When you're healing through trauma, though, you guys like we were just talking about, humor is like the best medicine, and this is why we can talk about it, is because like we're not that person anymore. We have grown from that person. Yeah. But anxiety can do all kinds of things. Like people can hold their stress in their stomachs, like they can hold their stress in their shoulders, like different like chakras in your body.
I'm constantly like trying to release my shoulders when
I'm always like, or when I'm cold, I'm like, It was so cold in the fly-in yesterday. I noticed I was like this, and like when we got home yesterday, I was like, oh my God, my shoulders. Yeah. Because when I get cold, I like tense up, just as a thing. But, going back to like, when you're drinking or when you're doing drugs, yes, you feel good because you're getting unnatural dopamines. And that makes you feel good. But it's just, it's just like blocking everything from your true self and really recognizing what you're doing to yourself. So like when you stop these habits and you have to really look at yourself in the mirror, I mean, that shit's really, really hard. And a lot of people don't want to do that hard work. I talk about this all the time. Like you have to want to get better, but you get to get better. Yeah. You get to have that choice to like get better. And like, I don't know about you, but I don't regret anything in my past. I don't regret anything in my past.
I have one regret. I don't regret blacking out and puking on myself. I don't regret dancing on tables. I don't regret lots of unsavory things I've done. The only thing I regret is turning down playing poker with Leonardo DiCaprio when I lived in Vegas. Ooh. Who does that? And I was like this snotty 22-year-old girl that was like, you think I'm just gonna go sit with this guy and like play poker with him because he's rich and famous? Like, ew. Now I'm like, what kind of little idiot was I? Like,
Okay.
because it was, I worked at the nightclub at the Bellagio. It's now called the Bank, I think, but back then it was called Light. And the managers, it was me and the other new girl. We were like the last ones leaving because we had to clean up or whatever at the end of the night. And he was like, hey, we've got somebody over in the VIP room, you know, like the high roller room or whatever, that just wants some hot girls to sit with him. And I'm like, ew, like I've never, like I've always had such an aversion to stuff like that. Like I had girlfriends when I lived, especially when I lived in Vegas, that were escorts and strippers. I was a stripper at one point. But I just couldn't, I'm like, it'd be so easy just to have a sugar daddy. Like, gosh, like, but I just couldn't do it. And so if anybody would treat me like that or talk to me like that, or like, oh, they just want a hot girl to sit with them, I'm like, ew, I'm too good for that. I'm gonna go do some coke in the bathroom now. Like, you know, like I'm too good for that, but I'm gonna go do this. But it's just where my morals were. I have no idea.
Well, that probably gave you anxiety, right? But at the same time, you at the same
no, I legit was just like being a snotty 22-year-old girl that was just like, no, I'm not gonna go. And now I'm like, why? Leonardo DiCaprio is one of my favorites. Like, why wouldn't I have done that?
Yeah, well, he's definitely better looking as he got older. Like, you're like, okay, you're a little snack. Eye candy snack.
I can't. Exactly.
I got a real snack in real person. You can't see him, but he is sitting over there.
Yeah.
But I guess like if you look at it that way, I did get asked to do Dr. Dre's makeup for the Grammys, and yeah,
did you turn it
down? I said no. Right, but I don't regret it, you know, because one, it was airbrush makeup and I had no idea how to do airbrush makeup, and I didn't want to just say like, yeah, you know, because my client who worked with him in the music industry, you know, I went to her 50th birthday party. Lori, if you're watching this, hi, I love you so much. And you know, Dr. Dre was there and I was just like, oh my God. But he thought I was from the East Coast. He was like, girl, are you from the East Coast? Because I went up to him, I'm like, Dre, what's up? Like, why haven't you put it out your album? Like, it's been years. Like, we love you. Like, just do it, you know? And I was just like making fun because that's what I do. Like, I just like make jokes so I get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm not funny, but like, I think I'm funny. Yeah. So I didn't want to do something that I didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was right. And, you know, I probably would have made him look like pink or purple or like with sparkles. I have no idea.
Given him white face or something.
Maybe. You know, I can do like any color skin with makeup. I did makeup for 19 years. And you know, but at the same time, I never really wanted to get in that world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a makeup artist and hair and like, you know, music videos you do on set, but like television shows, movies, you're there all day getting ready at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I'm not a morning person, but then you have to sit there all day and wait for touch-ups. So, you know, where is your own life?
Well, and there's just also like, I don't know if you ever felt it when you were, so it sounds like we've had a lot of similar experiences without even having talked about this stuff. Yeah. So I lived in LA for a little bit, lived in Vegas, like it definitely was knew people that knew people. Right. So I'd find myself in situations like this around, like I went to, it was like J-Lo's manager's 50th birthday party or something. And she was supposed to be there and like, she didn't end up being there. And I was so, oh my gosh, that time my gassiness didn't go away when I was there. And I was in the bathroom. I was like texting my best friend's mom and I was like, how do I make gas go away? She's like, get on all fours and make sure your head's below your hips and it'll just come right out. So I'm in this nice home in like up in the like Hollywood Hills, like Hollywood Hills, like up the windy roads. If you know anything about the Hollywood Hills,
girl, I'm in there.
Nice home bathroom on all fours, just praying someone doesn't bust the door on me, trying to let a fart out. So I didn't. So bad. Oh man, I was like, somebody give me some coke so I can go away.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So.
I get really gassy,
but I
too,
also
so
would.
Daniel
can confirm. Just kidding. She probably farts in her sleep, right? I do.
I don't know. He does. Like I'm like, wow, is that an earthquake? Something fall over? Oh, it's just Daniel. Okay,
it's blame it on Remy.
Okay, yeah, blame it on Remy.
So yeah, so it. But did you ever get just like? a weird feeling about the crowd. Like I always had this weird feeling of like, I would get offered these potential opportunities or like to hang out with certain people. And it just always felt kind of icky to me.
Right.
And now knowing what we know about Hollywood and all of that
I
stuff, I'm like, I'm
know.
glad that I kind of had that vibe and kind of stayed away from it. But
You
I
don't
did
need no
like,
Illuminati.
no, we
No.
don't need to sell our soul to the devil and like do all that weird stuff.
It's
But
sad. It's really sad.
yeah.
But maybe that's the energy. So like you talk
Yeah.
about spirituality and like being spiritual and connected, like even though I felt like I got shamed in the church I went to, I still kept this spirituality because I think, you know, being God's, you know, child, we are all God's children. If you don't believe that, that's okay. Like we're all children of somebody, and especially in a higher power. That's what I believe. And so that spirituality always carried me through things. I can't believe, you know, the things how I used to feel about myself or things that I used to do. Like my life could have gone in such a complete different direction. Like, I mean, if I, you know, I had tried drugs in my life, and it was in my like when I was 22 to 23. And you know what? It was really fun. I'm not gonna lie. It was really fun, but I'm glad. I always was so glad that I wasn't in that position when I was in like high school. You know what I mean? Where you're really not feeling good about yourself, where you don't have any confidence, where you're like completely depressed. And I don't know how I would have reacted trying those things in high school, where I was more of an adult, a little bit more mature. And I knew that like, this is not a good thing to do. And I was never addicted to do it. It was more just like having this fun experience and going dancing. But now, like, I was just talking about this to Bryce today, and Chanel. I love her. You know, I just love her. And we were just talking about these journeys. And I went out a couple weeks ago, and I think I talked about this in my other podcast with Michelle, and how I used to have like 4 or 5 drinks going out just to feel comfortable, but just to like fit in of like, I am having a good time, you know? And then when I just went out recently to a silent disco, we went out to dinner first, had a margarita, which margaritas, thank God, only come in these little glasses. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And they're $25. You know what I'm talking about. It's better just not to
So when you do a Cadillac margarita,
but they used to come in those glasses. Out, you know,
it was a big goblet.
Yeah. And so
like the salt and the things.
Yeah, those are my jam, or they used to be my jam. And so I had 2. And then, you know, and I didn't feel a buzz or anything. I just really love the taste of like margaritas, like good margaritas. And, you know, and you can make those obviously virgin. And so we went to the silent disco, and normally I would be like so uncomfortable in my own skin around all these people letting me be me, because I love music. I love to dance, but I always was uncomfortable in my own skin because I wasn't comfortable with myself. I didn't love myself fully. And so, you know, I didn't have any more drinks. I was out till 11.
Ooh.
You know,
way past your bedtime.
Yeah, and we weren't even downstairs in the crowd of the silent discoers. We were upstairs with just our table, and everyone was drinking and staring at us, and no one gave a flying fuck because we were just having a great time listening to music, being ourselves. And it was just like, my other coworkers were drinking, but again, none of them were drinking heavily, and I just didn't need a drink, and I felt so good. And I had a lot of compliments from random people, like come up to me and, you know, oh my God, you're so beautiful, blah, 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 blah. And it was because I was confident. It's not like, oh, you just have cool hair or whatever, or I love your lip gloss. Like, no, you're really beautiful. Like, you know what I mean? Like someone said I look like Stevie Nicks, and I was like,
oh, what's up? I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. I can give Stevie Nicks vibes.
Yeah.
But it was so interesting. I remember talking to Daniel about it the next day. I was like, babe, like I didn't need that. That was the first experience I've ever had, because I drink like once a week, but I hate being hungover. I hate it. I mean, I can really barely drink like 2 drinks now, unless I have a wild hair up my hat.
I know, we're old. It's like it affects us for like 2 days.
It really does. No, it affects you for like a week, man.
Well, I mean, listen, if we're talking about scientifically, speaking of the science of how that stuff affects us, if no one's listened to, do you listen to Dr. Huberman at all?
No.
So he does awesome. Follow him on Instagram, listen to his podcast. So he does a like 2-hour long podcast about alcohol and how it like just the science of it. And this is I don't think he drinks, but he's not coming at it from an angle of like, no one should be drinking. It's like,
Right.
let's just talk about the science of how
Right.
alcohol affects us, and then how it continues to affect us even after we stop drinking it. And I mean, there was stuff that I learned when I first quit drinking, that how it, you know, obviously it affects our cognition. We know that.
Right.
But it really emotionally stunts us from so they say basically, if you're consistently
Right.
drinking throughout your adult life, it emotionally stunts you from the time that you started drinking.
Right.
And I was 27 when I learned that. And I was like, oh, so like, I'm still emotionally 15 years old.
Yes.
And I kind of was like, I hadn't really processed anything. I hadn't realized until I quit drinking at 27 years old that I hadn't processed my mom's death from, that was 9 years prior at that
Right.
point. Right. So I was just now facing it all.
Right.
Because I just immediately went to, you know, getting drunk day in and day out for 6
Right.
months after that. And then just, you know,
Right.
normal drinking after that.
Yeah.
Not normal at all, but normal
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a couple things when you were talking that I wanted to touch on, is that like thinking that everybody's paying attention. So we get so insecure when we go out, right?
Mhm.
Because we think, oh, other people are looking at us,
Yeah.
or like, you know, are we going to be as cute, and like things like that.
Totally.
Nobody, and you're saying that like everybody else was just kind of in their own world. Nobody cared. Nobody does care. Because
Yeah.
everyone else is in their head just as much as you are. No one gives
That's
a
so
shit
true.
about you. They're
That's
all
so
thinking
true.
about themselves.
That's so true.
And that was
I never
like
thought about it that way.
the first time I heard that, that was so freeing. And I still think about that. So think about this
Yeah.
every time you go out, and
Yeah.
if you ever get that twinge, because it'll happen sometimes, like it still
Right.
happens to me. Like
Sure.
I love to go out and
Sure.
not drink, even if my friends are drinking. I'm like, yes, drink, please, have fun.
Yeah.
I'll be the sober one.
Yeah.
It actually helps me stay sober, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to act stupid. But
I know.
I
get that.
I get that, those twinges sometimes, like,
Mhm.
especially if I like see a guy, or like I see some really pretty girls over there, or I'm like, oh gosh, like, am I, you know, like we
Gas
get
bubbles.
that, yeah, gas bubbles. We get those thoughts they happen lightning fast, and we can train ourselves to stop having those kinds of
Yeah.
thoughts so often.
Right.
We can control our feelings. We can control our emotions by controlling our thoughts. Right.
Right.
But they're never going to fully go away. So when
Right.
they do happen, we just have to train ourselves to know how to reverse them, right? How to remove them. And so if I
Right.
get those thoughts, I remind myself that
Yeah.
every single one of those people is only thinking about themselves too.
Mhm.
And if I think,
Mhm.
oh, someone's looking at me, and
Mhm.
like, oh, you know, do I have something on my lip, like something on my face? Like,
Yeah.
they're thinking about themselves. They're
Right.
looking around wondering if somebody's looking at them. Nobody,
Yeah.
just as much as we're concerned about ourselves, everyone else is concerned about themselves too. They don't actually give a shit about us.
Dude,
They're
that
just worried
is-
about themselves. Not only that, but the most beautiful people in the world are some of the most insecure people I've ever met.
Yeah.
It's almost like the better looking you are outwardly, I'm talking like just, you know, like just looking at it. I'm trying to
Well,
avoid like calling people ugly and saying like, oh, ugly people are
Well,
confident, but it's,
celebrities are in a camera 24/7, so
or they
of
have
course
to
they're going to
always
be
present
insecure
themselves, or
about what they
there's
look like.
if you go out to a bar and you see a woman that you're like, you know, I see women all the time that it's like, wow, they just are so put together. Their outfits
Right.
are on fire. Their makeup's perfect. All these
Right.
things. If you were to have a real conversation, they were to open up to you about that, they would tell you that they feel like they have to completely present themselves that way because that's how people expect them to appear. Like they have to wear all the makeup. They
Right.
have to do all the things, you know, so
Right.
to really humanize other people and get
Mhm.
past that exterior. Because meanwhile, while we're being insecure and
Mhm.
thinking that, you know, other people are looking at us, or
Right.
like maybe we're not as pretty, or
Right.
our outfit isn't as good, or whatever it is, it's like
Right.
knowing that we're all often, not always, once you kind of have this realization, you stop doing it,
Right.
but a lot of people don't, that we're performing, right? If
It's
we're
a
wearing a
mask.
certain,
We're wearing all kinds of
we're
masks.
performing, and this is the image that we're putting out in the world. You know,
Yeah.
it's very immediate, and people started realizing this with social media because it's
Mhm.
you know, it's a really ideal way to put yourself out there, you know, where it's a little harder to hide. You could still wear makeup and wear the clothes or whatever when you're out in public, but you
Right.
start talking and you're going to show who you are.
Right.
But we're always performing, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like, once you can kind of get past that care for other people,
Yeah.
they're concerned for us because A, they're not concerned about us, and B, we shouldn't give a fuck,
Right.
that we start stepping into this like new reality. And that's kind of where a lot of, I think, my confidence was born, is like this
Right.
new reality of realizing that A, no one else cares, and no one else can be me.
Right.
No one else can look like me. No, like
Right.
I can go places without wearing makeup now. And like, I don't care if my face is even all broken out, because
Yeah.
I've seen women that I look at that like, I know, like logically, I know that they've got breakouts on their face, but I'm still like, wow, she's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So I just remind myself, I'm like,
Yeah.
people probably still think I'm beautiful, even if I have like, I've been picking up my face all morning or whatever,
Right.
you know what I mean? So it's
Right.
just changing your frame of mind and your mindset. So then that just kind of goes back to
Yeah.
like, going through traumas and, it's all the same. You just have to change your mindset. I hate to use that word because it's so like,
well, you're
mindset,
changing
mindset.
your programming too,
You are,
of what you
yes.
believe that's true when it's somebody else's truth and not your own truth. It's not yourself. You know what I mean? Like
someone else has probably spoken these things over you long before you even realized it.
Right. I mean, and it's like, society, like what you're talking about, like acne and stuff like that. They've almost like shamed acne. Like we feel so gross and blah, 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 blah. But it's just naturally what happens to some of us.
I have
you know
acne
what I mean?
at 38 years old.
Yeah, I still get it. I still get it. Like, I don't get it as like bad as other people. Like my whole life, I've been pretty lucky with that. But, at the same time, it's like, oh, I know my hormones are here because there she is. You know what I mean? I'm just like, what am I going to do?
And it's all normal. It's just
it's all normal.
It's our bodies, guys. This is another thing that like, that could be another key to helping people with confidence and coming through insecurities is things with our bodies, right? Particularly women. I'm not trying to go like full feminist on this, but I know men deal with other things, but I'll speak on women. But we, our body shape, our weight, having to wear makeup, our bare faces, our hair, the way we style it.
Right.
There's so much attention on how we look that no, I just lost my train of thought. Bodies. So then I was going to go to even gassiness. Like I'm joking about farting and stuff. It's like, how many of us are so insecure going into a new relationship of like, that you don't want to fart around the person or you don't want to poop around them and then you have anxiety and you have bubble guts the whole time. And the whole time you're on the date, you have to fart and it's so uncomfortable. And it's like, dude, I have now gotten to the point where I'm like, I wouldn't date a guy anyway if he cares about that kind of stuff. It's a freaking body function. We all have them. We all fart. We all poop. We all pee.
Thank you.
We all get acne. We all fluctuate in our weight. We all sweat. Like, why are we insecure about these things? Who told us to be insecure about this stuff? It's all part of being a human. Right. And we're not perfect. Right. So that's just like such a big thing that's like helped me get through so much of my insecurities is I'm just like, whatever. Like, and some people are taken aback at that because I'm so comfortable talking about certain things. I'm like, I have herpes and I fart and I do this. And I'm like, people are like, and I'm like, most people have herpes. It's like 1 in 3 people, if we're talking scientifically.
I get it on my lip when I'm really, really stressed.
I get it on my lip too, but my other lip. I haven't had one in years, don't worry, but
that's good. But it's so common.
About body
it's so common. Like, it is what it is. And you have to be comfortable like talking about it because you obviously have to tell your partner, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like I used to date this guy that would only tell me I was pretty with makeup, and I've always been very comfortable with makeup because of being a makeup artist. Like I love not wearing makeup, but I also love wearing makeup. It's really, really fun. My face is changing because I'm getting older. I don't really do a lot of stuff. My makeup looks the same almost like every day now, but like, who cares? It's still really fun. But like, I also don't care, like not wearing makeup or like if I burped, like I've always burped and
me too.
I just,
should we have a burping competition?
We should. Maybe that's the next episode. But my best friend's dad, like he was like, oh yeah, bring it up. Got on. Like that was like out of 5. Like ever since I can remember, I just wake up like, like I don't care. Like it's just coming out of me naturally, and I think it's really funny. And I think farts are funny. Like I used to fart underneath the blanket when we were watching like family movies. My dad would get so pissed because I would just waft it a little bit, and everyone would be like, oh, like they'd like be dying and so dramatic. And I'm like, I promise I won't do it again. I would do it like 2 or 3 more times.
And this is what you have to live with for the rest of your life, Daniel. Have you already soup Just
actually, I think there was the second time we hung out.
You should know the second time
we hung out. I did a silent but deadly in the car. Ooh. And I was just waiting for him to like say something. And then like an hour went by and I was like, did you not smell that? He's like, yeah, something was really bad in the car. And I was like, that was me, baby. I don't know why. I think silent but deadly farts are the funniest thing still. Like, yeah, I'm a child sometimes, but like,
See, I'm
never
like the opposite.
never
If my
means your inner
farts-
child.
If my farts don't make a sound, I get really disappointed because I'm like, I want it to make sound. In fact, I ripped one so hard coming out of the gym the other night that I had to look around and make sure no one was in their cars. Like, oh man, that was so loud.
I really hate the ones that when you are grocery shopping and you're down an aisle and like no one's around, you're like, yes, I just gotta let it out. And all of a sudden someone comes walking in, I'm like, I'm just gonna walk into it, I'm just gonna keep going.
Keep going.
Go.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't
There's
me.
some rotten food over there.
Yeah, it
It's
wasn't
not
me. It wasn't me, like
It
Shaggy always
wasn't me.
said.
Yep. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, Remy.
Oh my God, it wasn't me. So yeah, body image, right? So like we are taught like what our body image should look like from televisions, from magazines, now from social media, right? And so like when I was with that person, I'm like, dude, like I know that is so wrong. And I always knew it was wrong. And like I still didn't wear makeup just because of him. You know what I mean? But like, and I loved it. He's like, say excuse me. I'm like, fuck you, man. And I was like, shush me. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Like, cause I'm like, stop. I would be in the other part of the house. He's like, I heard that. Say, excuse me. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Excuse what?
Like,
There's
get
bubbles
over
coming
it.
in my body.
Do you
Whatever.
fart and burp? You're a freaking man. And when he would do, be like, I'm like, you're so gross. You're so gross because you don't respect like what naturally comes out of our bodies just because we're like a female. You know, yeah, I won't shit in front of in front of anybody. I think something,
not everybody, just some people.
Yeah, something should be kind of private. You know, I know my best friends are like, well, I don't care. Like, like, oh God, you know, like I love you, but
terrible.
Right. But like that, you know, being comfortable with yourself is how we find our truth with ourselves. And like we are the only ones on this earth that, you know, I'm Brittney McWethy. She's Amber Casteneda. Did I say that right? I did.
Yes.
Oh, good. I don't think I've ever said your last name out loud.
Well, I'm afraid to say McWethy because it makes me giggle every time you say it.
Because a lot of people have said McWethy and I've someone said that when I was in second grade.
Like I'm gonna accidentally say McQueefy.
Oh my God. Now you're just gonna, hey, what's up, McQueefy?
What's up, McQueefy? Like you haven't heard that ever in your life.
Oh my God. Like, oh, like, I mean, so many times, like people have got my last name wrong. Like, whatever.
So mean. Like growing up,
like they're really mean. But these are teachers that said that. Oh, McQueefy. And I'm like, do you like just know what you said? I don't know.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I had like this teacher one time was giving out like computer codes from our initials. Like my initial is BM and it's some old motherfucker. And he's like, oh,
things with your name. Like my BM
right?
snaps.
And he's like, you know what BM stands for is bowel movement. And I was like, wow, that was really inappropriate. I was so pissed. I'm like, who said that? Like, this is still elementary school. Like, who do you think you are talking about bowel movements?
Yes, okay. Looking back, it's kind of funny.
It's fun. Yeah, it's funny then, but like when you're young, it's embarrassing. You know, it's super embarrassing. But then it's like, why are we embarrassed? Because we're programmed to think these things are embarrassing because of what our parents know and what they, you know, it's the whole thing.
There's so much like programming, so much programming,
so
many like if I were to think back and just list out, which I'm not going to do off the fly here, but if I were to sit and list out all the things I've ever been insecure about, it was all programming from parents, programming from family, programming from television, programming from bullies at school. It was all programming, which is why it's like doing so much like reparenting of self and reprogramming and just erasing all of that stuff and just having this realization. It's just so freeing to think from that mindset of it's just bodily functions and these are just functions of our body, whether it's acne or it's our periods or it's farting or pooping or whatever. It's like, why are we embarrassed about these things? In fact, somebody posted something the other day that it was actually really funny. You know, she posted this funny story that was like, you know, I had my accountant come over, really nice guy, had a great conversation for, you know, 2.5 hours. You know, his name's John, great guy. And he walks out and I'm like, have a good day, Ryan. And I was so embarrassed and mortified. And I'm like, I get it. But also, why are we embarrassed about stuff like that? It's totally like, I would get so much anxiety over that too. Like, oh my God, that's mortifying. I just called that guy the wrong name. It's just a freaking name. And it's not like you did it intentionally.
Yeah.
Why do we get so in our heads and embarrassed and
Right.
anxious about things like that?
Right.
Right. Like if I were to, I mean, there's been times recently that I've been able to practice that I like said a wrong name in email or something, or I maybe even sent a wrong message to somebody.
Oops.
And I'm like, hey, you know, super sorry. I'm not going to be embarrassed or anxious about it. Like old me
Right.
would have, but
Right.
you know, today years old me is like, why do we get so anxious
Yeah.
and embarrassed about things that are just like, who freaking cares?
We're
It's
all
just
human.
a name. Also, our name isn't even who we are. If we were to go down the whole
That's
rabbit
true.
hole, it's just a name. This is not
that's
me.
true.
Like you can call me Stephanie and I don't care. Like
I know. And plus, like, I work with so many people. And like when I moved to Colorado Springs, you know, almost 2 years ago, my whole clientele was all brand new. And I'm like, who are you? I might have seen them like 3 or 4 times, you know, but there's a span of time like that you don't see these people and they're like, you don't remember me? Like, so I get that sometimes. I'm like, no, I don't. Sorry. You know, like and then I'm just like, you know, there's so many people that are new all of a sudden, all at the same time. So it's going to take some time and that's okay. You know what I mean? It's totally okay because I used to like, you know, feel bad about those things too. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because like, you feel bad that you don't remember certain things or like, I mean, I have clients that some of them kind of like, I have a client, they both have short hair, they both curl, they both have glasses, same cat eye glasses. And so I just, you know,
mix their names up.
I mixed their jobs up. Like, oh yeah, you're the one that like does this. And she's like, no, I'm a dentist. And I was like, oh yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now, you know, and then sometimes that actually helps that you'll never do that again.
Yeah, exactly. What's the best way to learn? Fail, make mistakes.
So when you were going through like actually finding yourself and actually like loving yourself, because like people think, you know, like I'm just gonna work myself, I'm gonna love myself today. You know, yeah, it can start today, but it takes a while to really fully love yourself.
Yeah, it does because here's the kicker is in order to love yourself, you have to know who you're loving. If you don't know who the heck you are, who are you going to love? So I think it's, we can talk about loving ourselves, but first we need to talk about figuring out who the heck we are. Right. And really getting to the root of that, because then going back to what I was talking about with the performance, right, is, you know, we're all performing and some of us like me, I would pride myself in that I'm a chameleon. I can fit in anywhere. So I'm always performing for different audiences. Right. I would only show a part of me to each different, because I've never really fit in, but I've always gotten along with a lot of different kinds of people. You know, one day I could be at, especially like throughout my 20s, like one day I could be at like some sort of entrepreneur, like, you know, event meetup in the evening that was arranged by the, you know, county SBA or whatever. I was like, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just couldn't find my way. So I would go to things like this, trying to surround myself with the right people. Yeah. I would show up at something like that. And then, you know, I'd probably leave there and go to a concert where I'm doing a bunch of cocaine and blacking out with my friends. Right. Like, so I was really good at compartmentalization. Right. And I think there's probably some aspect of my upbringing that created that. Right. But then looking in my adult life, it's even in high school, like I got along with all the different groups, the jocks, the nerds, the, you know, whoever, the stoners, but I would only show that part of me that, I didn't fart, it was the dog. Oh, I know. She's like, I didn't fart beyond. That I would only show a little part of me that was necessary to get along and fit in. It's not like I was ever not myself. I just only showed that part of myself that helped me fit in there, so that I could fit in. Right. Because I was never confident enough to show really who I was, because then they probably wouldn't accept me if they really knew who I was. Because growing up, I was told by my mom that, like, you know, you're such a bitch, nobody wants to be around you. I'm like, okay, so I can't be myself because I'm just a big bitch and no one wants to be around me because I'm so confrontational and I'm so argumentative and all things that come from my parents, you know? Yeah. And so thanks, Mom, but then creating the situation. But I learned to not be myself. I was taught that people didn't like me. So I had to only show little parts of me to get along in certain areas. Right. So I always thought that compartmentalization and being able to show up different ways in different groups was a good thing. I always thought that it was good. I'm like, well, this is cool. Like I can fit in anywhere because I'm just a chameleon and I can just, you know, slither my way into these different areas, only showing parts of me. But it's like, how much more freeing it is, a little more lonely, but how much more freeing is it to just be fully yourself? Yeah. And how much appreciation of life and joy that comes from
Mhm.
just fully being yourself and accepting yourself as you are. But it took
Right.
me years of, at which this journey, I mean, I always knew that there was something wrong, like something, I mean, I thought I was bipolar for most of my adult life. I was always in and out of therapy and counseling because
Yeah.
other adults in my life said that my mom killed herself because she was bipolar, though she was never diagnosed. So I was afraid that it was hereditary and that I was also bipolar because I was always depressed.
That's a
and I would
scary
have,
feeling.
yeah, and I would have, and still to this day, I struggle with suicidal ideations. I've never attempted to kill myself.
Yeah.
But it's very easy for my brain to go there of
Yeah.
like, I mean, I could tell you even just yesterday, my brain will just go there of when I start feeling really defeated and worthless and failing, like a failure.
Yeah.
My brain will almost always go, what's the point? Why are you doing this? Like,
I
just
get
go.
that.
And I would
I get that.
never, ever, ever actually hurt myself. I'm
Right.
too much of a pussy for that. I would never do that. I
Right.
hate pain. I don't want to,
Right.
you know, I do
Yeah.
like living. So I would never do that. But my brain is so hardwired to go like that habit of it
Like that
going there.
subconscious mind.
And I mean, I remember the first time that I called my dad. I snuck the phone into my room at night when I was like 16 to call my dad and tell him that I wanted to kill myself. And that was the first time I found out that my dad had also had these same feelings. And then my mom killed herself 2 years later, right? So so suicidal ideations and like these thoughts of like just depression and all of these deep dark thoughts have, you know, are very prevalent in my family. And so it's taken a lot of training to move out of that.
Yeah.
But fine. So I'd always known something was wrong. It was when I was 27, when I quit drinking, that I really started facing myself and reading books about things. Like I would go to therapy, but it was like, it never really felt like it was helping. It felt like I was able to share a lot and that was helpful, but I wasn't actually getting the tools that I needed. But reading these books about family conflicts and how our adult relationships are affected by our primary relationships with our parents, triangulation. So if you don't know what that, you know, it'd be like if you and Daniel are having issues and you're complaining to me about it and bringing me into your guys' problem, you know, that's triangulation.
Yep. We were just
Codependency No More. I was just reminded of that book last night, and I read that when I was 27. Actually just ordered it on Amazon to read it again. Yeah. Really great book on codependency if you deal with that kind of stuff. But that was when I really started learning the science and the reality of communication and relationships with people and how certain relationships affect other relationships in our lives. Right. Then, you know, over the next couple of years, I did a lot of isolation of myself and traveling. I mean, that's a whole other story of who I am. Quit my jobs to go travel long-term until I ran out of money. So there's like a whole gap in there of like lots of other adventures Amber had, but it was all a journey of finding myself. And there was a lot of things that I learned about myself, especially from a spiritual standpoint when I was traveling. So being off alone and by myself and experiencing new cultures and stuff. Yeah. That really helped me. Like that was the first time that I had ever gone days and even weeks without putting makeup on, because I just was in a space of like, I didn't care. I wasn't worried about what other people thought because I was just out experiencing the world. And so was everyone else around me, because I was with a bunch of backpackers and hostels, you know, that I didn't know, that were all from all freeing. It's so freeing. And then I dreaded coming back to the US because I knew it was going to be back to that rat race of caring what everyone thinks of me and like doing all this stuff. But yeah, so it was a long journey of like finding my confidence, but really being able to accept myself came down to, you know, I did a lot of work of learning those things and learning about relationships and communication with other humans, which did not grow up learning tools to communicate well at all. That wasn't screaming at one another. Yeah. I learned those tools. So I was able to get myself so far until then I had to actually do the work of learning who exactly I was. Like I learned all the things that logically could get me confident and to get me to that next level. But it wasn't until I realized that like, oh, I don't actually even know who I am. Yeah. And it took some people in my life close to me that would drill it into me of like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Like, what do you want? Not like, what do you want based on what other people want you to do, but what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know what I want because I don't even know who the F I am. Right. Yeah. So so surrounding yourself with people that actually really want to help you grow is so important. And it wasn't until I was able to do that I was put into it, because everyone else around, you know, like family and friends, like they're so loving and great, but they're, you know, there's some aspect of our close relationships with friends and family that that they want to help and they want to see you succeed insofar as you're not going to surpass them. Right.
Right.
So that's not to say that they're intentionally trying to keep you down, but they can't help you beyond where they are. So depending on the kind of people we've grown up with, that, you know, you may not be able to get far at all, if anywhere. You may be starting in reverse. Yeah. But there is some aspect of pride that comes into that, and like feelings that get hurt if you start bettering yourself beyond where someone else is, because then you become a mirror for them. I experienced that when I quit drinking the first time. It was really hard to hang out with my friends that were still drinking and partying, not because I didn't want to be around them, because I finally learned to be around everyone when I was sober, but then I became a mirror for them and their problems. And so then people would be like, Amber thinks she's too good for us and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's what happens when you're growing too. Like you're going to be growing up here, and some people are going to come with you, and some people are going to still continue to come with you, and they're going to fall off like, you know, boosters on a rocket. Like I've said before, I've heard people say that a million times.
That's a good one.
You know, because people are in your life for a season.
Yep.
Or they're going to be in your life for your life.
Season, was it season, or lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like when you recognize these things about yourself, like books are amazing. Books really helped me get through a lot of things, because a lot of therapists were like, you seem fine. And I'm like, really? Because I'm not, but okay. But I also had a good head on my shoulders. I knew things were going on, you know, but you know, books are so amazing because they're just someone else's stories, just like we're sharing, you know, Amber's story today, and parts of my story. Like, you can read people's stories in books and relate to them. You know, it's all about relating and learning that, you know, you're a beautiful, unique person the way you are, and learning about like what you like, how to say no, you know, how to say yes, and just
like no's an option. You mean boundaries are like a thing that we can
right? Because I feel like when you're not in that place, all you want to do is please other people, and you want to say things that you think that they might like.
Yep. So
you know what I mean?
So that, and then let's think about it. That's super selfish. So I can't tell you how many times when I was younger in my early adult life that I would get praise for being humble. Well, I wasn't humble. I was super insecure, and I was always people pleasing also. So people loved having me around because I was always trying to make sure everybody else was good, and I was always trying to please everyone else. But
you became everybody's cheerleader, and no one was a cheerleader for you.
Yeah. And then but then if we think about it too, if we drill down to it, is in a way, like I was always like, you know, everyone else is shitting on me and I'm always such a good friend, I'm doing this. But really, if I get down to the root of it, I was super selfish, because why was I trying to do for other people so much? It was really because I wanted acceptance. So at the end of the day, it's like, even when we're being the most kind sometimes and empathetic and loving and doing for others, it's not uncommon for it to actually come from a really selfish place. If we're not in a good mental space and mental and emotional space. Right. So I was, you know, I acted very unselfishly in my earlier years of my life, but I was coming from a very selfish place because I was doing those things and going so far outside of myself because I thought that I needed to in order to be accepted. So I was trying to find acceptance by doing for other people so much.
Yes, I totally get that. And I think, you know, a lot of us are in that position because it's really coming down from not being confident in who you are. You know, you're not confident in your own skin. So you just want to people please, but it really is, you're like trying to fill your cup, but it really is a cup with holes on the bottom. You know what I mean? And so you're like, why am I feeling like this? I feel like I'm being a good person, but you're just being everyone's cheerleader. That's why people love having you around. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there are like good qualities about you doing that, because you love these people, but you don't recognize that you're hurting yourself. And
are we requiring anything in return? You know, are we just giving? Right. Are we expecting something in return? Are we asking for anything in return?
Right.
It's hard.
It is a really vicious circle that like you will see, and when you're out of it, you will only see it when you're out of it, or you're going to feel like, man, like, why am I putting up with that? And if you start thinking like that, you already know that you're on a path of like recognizing like, this is not good for me. These people are not adding value to me anymore. You might be friends with these people for not 50 years, but I mean, people are friends for 50 years, but like, I'm not even 50 years old.
I mean,
so like,
I hope that we don't get to 50 before we figure these things out, but
exactly.
My dad's just now figuring a lot of this
and
out.
That's okay.
He's 55.
That's okay. Like, I hope my mom like figures these things out, you know, so we can have a good relationship someday. I always pray for that, you know, and then when you get to the, you know, this other place, then you really have like, you don't want to have sympathy. Like you get to this place where we have sympathy for other people, which is going down to their level. Now I have empathy for other people. Like, hey, like here's like blah 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 blah. Follow this and get some help. You know, I'm here when you need it, but I'm going to pull you into my power because I went down into everybody's problems, and it was just so dramatic, and I didn't feel right, and you don't feel good. And so, like, you learn over time when you really love yourself, you're protecting yourself by protecting your power.
Yeah.
It's so important because people will take advantage of you like left and right, and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Because you're not confident in who you are.
Because we're allowing it at the end of the day, right? Like it's then switching that mindset of like, in a way, we want people to take advantage so that we can have the upper hand.
Right.
Like, you know, if you really get down to, again, that just and maybe it's just me, maybe that was just my experience that I found that I did so much for other people in a way, like hoping that, not that I expected some direct return, but hoping that was putting me in a good spot to receive at some point. Right. Yeah. So it was not that I was expecting things in return, but if I didn't get something in return, I would eventually blow up because I'm like, I've done X, Y, and Z for you and you've never done anything. And then they're like, well, you're holding this over my head. And I'm like, I wouldn't be holding it over your head if you'd ever treated me well or done for me, you know, I wouldn't be to this point. But why do I continue to give to that person if I'm not ever getting anything in return? And to have those realizations about very close relationships, like with siblings and moms and dads and things, it's really hard to, because most people, I feel like, grow up not having boundaries. We're not taught boundaries. So it's like, you know, if we're thinking boundaries as like a literal thing of like, say, you know, mom, dad, brother, sister, if that's what the family is you've got a room and 4 cubes and there's walls in between, those are the boundaries. And it's like, hey, can I come into your room? Sure, you can come into my room. But a lot of families, there's no dividers. There's just a room and you're all in it and you're all in each other's space and like doing gross things with other people's energy and messing things up. And then you go into adulthood like that, creating all kinds of messes by bringing that same behavior into all your adult relationships, and then figuring it out at 38 years old, having to try to reverse that after years and years of allowing people to just step all over your energy. And then also, you know, inevitably, I'm sure I've stepped on other people's energies, not knowing that what boundaries are, that it can be very lonely trying to reverse that. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. And like stepping into my confidence at this point in my life and dealing with my codependencies with some of these close relationships is it feels very isolating because I'm having to create boundaries and where boundaries never were. So inevitably that other person feels like I'm putting a wall between them because they don't know the difference between a wall and a boundary.
Right. That is a huge thing she just said, you guys, because like, as you're growing and finding love for yourself, like you have to do this journey by yourself, and they're gonna be like, why are you doing this anymore? And they're gonna just shit on you because you're not doing what they want. Now, if this starts happening over and over and over, do you think that they want you to get better? Do you think that they respect you in your journey of like loving yourself? They don't. They might not even know it because they're used to you being something else, but you have to separate those emotions. Like you can't get emotions involved if you are on the journey of loving yourself, because it is lonely, because you have to work on it yourself. Like no one's going to solve these problems for you. And that's why it is a lonely road, but it's a lonely road of finding your power. So there is like a light and a light and a bigger light and a bigger light and a bigger light. So if, you know, friends, family are going to drop off through this journey for you, it's okay. It's okay, because eventually you're going to get, like, I had a conversation with a friend of mine today and they were like, Brittney, you're so unrecognizable from like 2 years ago, a year ago, like where I like am excited to have conversations with you now because like I know that I can talk to you about anything and you're going to respect me. Not that I ever disrespected anybody's opinions, but I didn't understand.
And it's also okay to admit, which is why I'm trying to like get used to saying out loud. It's like, I maybe used to be a really selfish person. It's also okay to admit that we were probably really disrespectful to other people, and we were disrespecting other people's boundaries because we know now, right? Like, So
I mean, I used to get, my friends used to call me out on stuff like, Brittney, that was really hurtful. And I was like, I thought that was like a really good thing out of love, but it was also from a pattern. Like I knew growing up as a child, what I thought like being kind and loving was, when I was actually being like really disrespectful.
Mhm.
And I'm really glad I had these friends to like, show up in my life. And, we're still friends to this day. I might be growing at a different pace now, but at the same time, like, I'm so thankful that I did have certain people in my life through my depression and, just trying to get out of my own head, that I was learning love, from just friends and good families. And now, like, I really got to take that upon myself and just do it by myself. And, and recognize that, like, I have to respect what everybody does, like their opinions, what they do, like, because it's not me. I have to always make sure that I am taking care of this half right here, this whole thing.
That's
So
all you're responsible
it's
for.
all you're responsible for. You're not responsible for anybody's problems. What your mom, your sister, your brother feels like, whatever. If you're in a marriage, of course, you have to, work on that together because that's your partner. But still, as like in a relationship, you got to take care of yourself first so you can be the best partner for somebody else. And when you get to that point of loving yourself, recognizing that for yourself, then that right person will come along, when you never thought it was possible. Like, I was like, I'm going to just be like my grandma, like she was divorced, by the time I think she was divorced before I was even born. My grandma was always single. And there was a lot of things that I did, like from her, and being really masculine and protecting myself and all these things. And she was amazing. But I was like, I'm just going to be single my whole life, because I always told myself, I used to tell myself, I'm the best third wheel. I'm just the best third wheel.
Like the third and fifth and seventh wheel,
Yeah. And it's like, and at times, like, all my other past relationships, like I missed that third wheel. Now that I'm with Daniel, like I want him to be everywhere I am. But am I okay going out by myself with friends and like, family members or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm okay. I don't need to have this like independent facade and I can do anything. And yeah.
And that's that, like, so earlier when I was like, I'm not trying to go down the super feminist road, is like, I used to be, it's feminine, not feminist. It's like that the whole feminist ideology of like, I'm so independent and I can do it myself. It's like, it's so toxic. And I used to be that, like, don't get me like, and this is why I can speak on it, because I was so far down that left, we won't go political. I was so far down that side of the rabbit hole. I'll say this way on the, at least on, I don't know how the video, is it going to flip? I don't know. I don't know. The wrong way.
I don't know.
But I was so far down the rabbit hole of feminism and all of that stuff that I'm like, I can do it myself. And but that's so toxic, because that kept me so far in my masculine that no men that I wanted, like I wanted a manly man, that someone that could come in and take care of me and make me not have to take care of myself. But all I was attracting was, I'm just gonna say pussies. Like I was attracting really feminist or not feminist, but really feminine men that, and all men should be in touch with their feminine side. But this was like, just like I was toxically in my masculine, these were toxically in their feminine and very emotional. And as soon as a man gets emotional around me, then I would be like straight in my masculine, like get the hell out of here with that.
Yeah.
So that's like that behavior and that like that feeling like empowerment from being alone and independent and doing it yourself is like, I don't have to be helpless. I don't have to be weak, but I would like a man that can come into my life and make me feel protected. And allow me to go fully. And I'm definitely much more in my feminine than I used to be. I would say it's pretty balanced now, but I would like to even tip the scales of being more feminine than masculine. Like I feel like as a single person, you got to kind of like, you keep it even, because I'm playing that role in my life. I'm playing both sides of my life, but I would like to find a man that's like, I can lean fully into my feminine and allow him to take control and allow him to take power.
Absolutely. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And at the same time, like that allows you to ask for help, to ask for support,
which requires a lot of confidence too.
Ask for support. Like Daniel, like lets me be in my feminine energy more than any man that I've ever been with, and I was like, oh, like that's what it's like. I totally respect him as a man. And I also trust him in his, his ideas from a men's point of view and like taking care of things, like whatever he says, like, you know, we're looking into the housing market right now. And I might say this and I, you know, like, and he's like brilliant at it. And then I'm like, okay, you know, I see it. I see it. Cause sometimes I don't see it at first. I'm like, I'm never living around, like, I'm never like sharing my house with somebody and renting it out, like whatever, you know? And, but there's like a huge like game about that, which is another story. But the more he explains it to me, because he's so patient with me and I appreciate that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see it. You know, I see that. I feel that.
How long were you single?
I was single for 5 years and then I dated some asshole, narcissistic asshole, when I moved to Colorado Springs and we were together like for 6 months. And then I was single for almost another year again. And,
So years, going on years. I've been single for most of my adult life. I feel like we, at this point in our lives, and how old are you? Do you mind saying?
40.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're
I turned
similar
40 last
age
November.
and we've been single a lot in our adult life.
I never
think
used to be. I never used to be. I would always have a boyfriend. I would always have a boyfriend.
So you went from
until,
the,
like
the serial monogamous to the,
yeah. So
to
like I think after like I was 33, then I hit these huge single moments,
Yeah.
you know.
well, and in a
And then
way,
I
so
was
then
feeling
you
too
really
comfortable
got
in
to
it.
grow. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm getting at is I feel like at
Mhm.
this point there's like, yeah, we, you know, there's a certain kind of man that we want, and we want a man that can take control. We can relinquish control to, that we can trust, but also has to be really patient with us because we've been that independent woman as an adult for a while. And now we could be really dense. So we need a lot of patience to allow that trust to happen. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
And
super
you know,
important.
like, and as long as you know that about yourself, or you know that like still is going to be a subconscious thing that you're working on, like Daniel, he's like, you know, we're not perfect, right? There's going to be things in our past that are just going to come up naturally, you know, and you're going to get defensive. Like I can be really defensive, or I don't want to hear, you know, like how he's like feeling, but like I'm feeling certain things too. And so it's really important to recognize like, but that's also like showing up for yourself, is recognizing that you are these ways and maybe you're not hearing things. And, you know, when you learn to hear, you're being respectful. Like, I think hearing and listening is such a superpower, like that you grow into as an adult, because you respect yourself as you respect another. And, you know, we can go down the rabbit hole in that because our society is completely effed in that part. You know what I mean? Like, I don't respect you. And if you don't believe this, then I'm not going to be your friend. Like, what? Like, it's okay if you disagree with me. Like, you have your right to have your opinion. Like, everything that you do should start with unconditional love, because then there won't be that boundary of like, no, I'm not going to be friends with you because of this. Like, you set your intentions with unconditional love, then you're automatically going to respect other people. You're going to learn to listen. You're going to learn to be able to have the conversations, even if just spit somewhere, even if it's like, you don't just, if you, you don't agree.
Body things, it's fine.
Again, body things. Right. So, I mean, these are all the things that you learn as you love yourself. And that's the whole goal for this channel and this podcast, is to have little tips and tricks through all these traumatic experiences and like doing weird shit to ourselves and making up stories in our minds that of what we should believe, when it really comes down to, what do you want? Who do you want to become?
It's not that simple.
It's not. It's really, really not. But I know now that like I love who I am, and I want to help as many people as I can learn to love themselves.
You're so beautiful for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I've been getting that a lot, and I'm learning to say thank you, because it is like something to be proud of, you know. Like, if you would have asked me like a year ago if I was going to be doing podcasts, and be like, girl, no, like who the fuck am I to do that? Like, you know, but then, you know, you meet all these people in your life. This is how I met Amber. Amber was in the den too, but she's also good friends of like, you know, our little tribe here. I hired her to do my website for my coaching group. That's going to be coming out like,
ooh, look at that
sometime soon.
Ooh.
I did talk about it in some other episode. But I am going to be starting a coaching group of just being real with you guys, and, you know, giving that one-on-one experience of helping you guys learn to love yourselves. And yeah, she's doing my website. So if you need a digital creator, she's amazing.
And if you
You
need
know?
a cheerleader from a healthy place with boundaries,
Right?
this is your girl.
Right. And I do hair too. So, you know, like, but it's just, it's like trying to put like, you're trying to you put the puzzle pieces of a heart back together in this world, because, mental health is really, it's really crazy, and even when you were talking about like having, suicidal thoughts, like when the shit's bad, like the past 2 weeks have just been so hard. Like, you're just like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I had those thoughts like in the last 2 weeks, like I just fucking, I'm giving up, I'm like, no, Brittney, no, that is your past self. That's your subconscious past self trying to get into your mind.
Well, the thing is,
but that's when you have to keep going.
Somebody just reminded me last night that when we're pushing ourselves and doing hard things and getting uncomfortable, those thoughts are going to start coming in like tenfold. It's like, and if you believe in God and Jesus and all that, it's like the more you step into your power and the path that God has for you, the more the enemy is going to come in and try to tear you back down and take you back into those old cycles. So it's like, while I'm like sitting here working and having all these defeating thoughts and being like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep about it. Like, what, maybe I do just need to allow myself to take that little 20-minute cat nap, but wake up and come right back out of it and be like, Jesus, help me.
Yes. Help me learn how to sit and being uncomfortable, because this shit is uncomfortable, you guys. Like, I'm very uncomfortable. Like, oh my God, I'm start launching this coaching group. Like, who am I to do that? Who am I not to do that? Right?
To do that.
Like, the more love we can give in this world, it might fail. And it might be successful. It's
not going to fail.
Like, it's not going to fail. But at the same time, like, I already know that whatever happens is okay. Because I'm passionate. And if you're passionate about something, like, go with it. And you're going to get hit with every obstacle, every person saying, what the hell you're doing? You're not, what, you know what I mean? Like, that is the devil coming into your life, because the devil doesn't want you to be successful in the spiritual realm of being God's child and, sharing that love and unconditional love with everybody. So as we wrap this up, because, I do have to go on date night with my man. I get to,
I don't get to be the third wheel.
I know, right? If it wasn't date night, I'd be like, come on, girl, let's go. And so, like, this was just an amazing conversation of fun and laughter. And, you guys, like, she's been through a lot. Hit her up on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, again, like, we're all always open to answer questions. And if we don't know the answer, hey, talk to this person, get a therapist, join a group, have this community. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have all the answers, but we can guide you to something else. And obviously, she is a true hero. She's a goddess. She's in her feminine energy. It's so beautiful to see her this way. I might have not known her in her past, but like, working through that traumatic experiences as a child and not receiving the right type of love, which we all experience, is really beautiful. And that's the thing, like, you can make a choice like she did.
And it can take a really long time. That's what's like,
and it's okay.
God just wants me to like share this, that because it's come up several times as we're talking, is that it can be such a long road, which can sound really discouraging, but you just have to keep making little steps. You have to keep learning, you have to keep reaching out, surrounding yourself with better people,
baby steps every day.
Reading books, join a group, get some counseling, get some therapy, go out and do something fun for yourself, really try to learn yourself. Excuse me, because it can be such a long road, but it's so worth it. I said, from a young age, I knew that there was something wrong, that all I wanted to be was happy, and I would do anything to be that. And it took different, obviously it got darker before it got lighter, but every step of the way, had it not got darker, had I not gone and drove in a blackout and almost totaled my car, that forced me to turn around and put myself in AA and quit drinking, that I wouldn't have finally found that peace and started working my way back out of everything. So sometimes it has to get darker before it gets lighter. It's just the path that we have to follow. You just have to keep trying.
And in the dark is where we learn the most. You guys, like, and just know that, it's not when you start this journey, just know that it's not going to be easy. It's little baby steps at a time. It's little 1-degree shifts at a time. Like it's not going to happen overnight. And just know that like that part is going to be a little bit lonely. But guess what? When all these things happen, you're going to make more money in your life. Your body's going to look better because you're going to want to feel better to do more powerful things. Your relationships are going to get stronger. You're only going to have people that give you value and vice versa. And then, you know, at the same time, your mental space is going to always be clear because you're going to always be open to an open space before you get, you know, into judgment or, you know, disrespect. Like all these things in your life are just going to click and everything is going to be enhanced. Of course, things are always going to be thrown at you because that is life. But because of all the things that you worked on, you're like, okay, I'm in this place right now and it's okay. I'm going to get through it. Yeah. And that's beauty.
And surrounding yourself with people that are on that same path is so, so, so important. And getting yourself away from those relationships that can tear you down, like we were talking about. Right. Don't let that discourage you. You have to find the people to surround yourself with that are similar. So that's why a group like Brittney is starting. That's why those spaces are so important because you're putting yourself around like-minded people. It's like, it's like, you know, you want to level yourself up from a level 2 to a level 13. You want to find people that are at a 5 and a 7 and a 10 and keep going up and don't go back, you know, because it's going back and surrounding yourself with people that are where you were is going to pull you back into that space. So you need some time to have
invest in yourself, you know, like I mean, I've never invested into a coaching group before, you know, and I was like, it just made me recognize like who I am and who I wanted to become. And I didn't even know this, you know, I wouldn't have known this if I didn't invest in myself. Yeah, I invested in hair education and all this makeup education and blah, blah, blah. But investing in yourself is the best thing that you can do for yourself because you're really, truly around other people that are pushing you to see your own light.
Yeah. And if it costs money, it's all that is it's an energetic exchange. It's an energetic exchange. Money is energy. So if you just jump into say a free group or a free space or a free event, what skin are you putting in the game to actually receive from it? If you're not putting something into it, you're not going to truly take anything out of it. You have to have that energetic exchange. And the way that our world works and our economy works is the energy typically that we give is money for things, right? So rather than looking at it like I did when I first joined my group of going, oh my gosh, can I afford this $150 right now? Like,
I felt that way too.
Yeah,
I felt that way too.
And then you just can. Energetic exchange. Yeah,
it is an energetic exchange because it's giving you so much value in your life that money is nothing. And so invest in yourself, you guys. If you have any more questions, reach out to Amber. I will put her Instagram in the box below. So just reach out, you guys, like never feel afraid to reach out. You're not alone. And we are here to love, guide you, and make connections for you. Like anybody on my channel that you feel like is your community, reach out to them because I know everybody on my channel will answer you in a heartbeat. So thanks so much for coming on the channel.
Oh, we get to hug. You don't normally get to do this with your people.
I know. So again, have a great week, you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting. If you feel like you want to share this episode with somebody that needs it, go for it, you guys.
Yeah.
So have a good one.
Share it.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Remy.